talking about trauma-informed, and they now know what that is, and they now know how that's going to impact the children. So we started there, and we kind of got into a room, and I have one of my lovely managers, who's a good home, in the background, and we had a very painful meeting about where do we want to go, what do we want to be known as. And then the tough part came in, which was educating the business. Because this is a culture change. This is something completely new, really scary actually for an organisation to say we're now going to do something different. And when I say educate, I'm not just on about the teams, I'm on about the group execs, the board, your colleagues, your other divisions, the local authorities, the commissioners. We're now doing something very new and unknown in a residential environment. So we did that by consistently talking about the success stories, day-to-day success stories. So a child getting ready for school is quite normal in the outside world, right? But not in our homes. That's really traumatising for a lot of our children. So talking about, do you know what? We had 3 days out of 5 that a child got up today, had breakfast, got dressed and went to school. And that's because of the approach that we put in with that. We also, and let's talk group exec and money, we also had to think about selling this idea, and it was a sell to the group exec team, to say we're going to have to invest. And not just money, but a huge amount of time and understanding, and being comfortable about being uncomfortable, and saying we're going to get this wrong. We don't really know what it looks like yet. We hadn't even met Asha and Innovating Minds at this point. We had no idea how we were going to move it forward, but we knew that we had to educate. And then we went back to local authorities and said, this is what we're going to do. CQC came in, we also work in Wales, we had CIW, we were educating those as well, for them to understand what do they want, equally what are we going to deliver. Bearing in mind at this point we still didn't know what the outcome would look like. And then we identified our resources. So we knew where we wanted to be, we didn't know how to get there. So we had to look at our whole skill set of our management group. Are they ready? Some of them were not ready to have that culture change. Some of them were very, this doesn't seem quite right. What is that? Something new, something else we're going to have to change. And then we had to go with the practitioners that were going to be delivering this really hard work. And we realised we didn't have anything internally, which is where Asha kind of magically came into our world. And together we created our strategy. So Innovating Minds really helped us to unpick what that first step would look like. And when, the impact you've had today, the impact that it makes already, but we didn't realise, and Ash and I was having a meeting the other day, and I said, I don't think you really understand the impact that this programme really makes, because we thought it would just be a small segment of what we do, and it definitely launched us, but actually what it's done is made us all go, oh, hang on a minute, we've really got to do something here and change what we're doing. So we created our strategy. Oh, can't make that word. So, how does it feel starting out doing this? Bloody scary. It's really scary. And those that are in this room that will take this back to their organisations to launch this idea, good luck. Because it really is that point of sitting with somebody with the unknown and saying, this is what we're going to do. And equally, people want outcomes, right? They want to see something in black and white, an outcome. Well, you can't see this. Not yet. Not at the start. You can't see any of it. What you can see is an idea forming. You can see staff going, I'm on board, I'm not. Okay, so how are we going to challenge that? How are we going to get working with those? You also have, as we've said, that consistency. You can't talk about it once, you've got to keep talking about it. And it's every day. It's exhausting, but you know you're going to get there. That research, just research. Anybody that's thinking about taking on this approach and working with Innovating Minds, research. Speak to me a little bit more. Innovating Minds have many clients they work with. Speak to those people, know those impacts, because they're the ones that you're going to have to get that outcome for, to really understand where that's going to move your business, and more importantly, where it's going to take the children. I'm not very good at this then. Okay, so the impact. So we are now a year into the Innovating Minds programme, 2 years into our change of strategy. And if I was to sum this up really, and I was thinking about this morning, what has been our biggest impact? And it's culture. Everybody talks about it. Every single thing that we do now comes from a trauma-informed way. And the facilitation, we have support groups that are offered by Innovating Minds, and they challenge our thinking and our narrative, and that's really, really important. So even down to how we award our children, we will have award boxes, right? We will have that. But actually it's about our awards, not their awards, and it's just completely changed. Karen Peskett, who you just saw was the manager of one of our homes, that has completely changed her home, completely, in every sense of the direction. So it has increased our productivity. We do have something that we can now see. We can actually see the outcomes of those children. So just to give you an example, we have a child who consistently would hit and actually would result in a member of staff going to hospital. I mean, it was consistent and always attacked genital areas. So you can imagine there was issues going on there. That child now screams in someone's face and walks away. No more hitting. And that's down to this. And that's because they now manage those feelings. We actually have children, like I heard it actually recently and read it in an incident report. A child shouted out, "I feel red," and walked away. Now before, that would have been an absolute attack and would have had an impact on all the other children in the home. So just by shouting out, "I feel red," or "my eyes are sore," you know, that's huge. It's such an impact. The staff are feeling, well, you heard from Lisa in the beginning, she's excited. You know, who gets excited about trauma? We do. Because we know that what we're putting in place is helping our children. That's huge. And it's not every day. You know, we know we're all in this industry. You go home and find a really tiny win for the day. We don't have to with this, because these programs are bringing out other things. Our Reg 44s, they're citing it. They're citing it in their reports. They are seeing the change. They are seeing the reduction of our incidents. Increase of ABCs, but a reduction of incidents, that's a win. In any stretch of the imagination, that's the win. And Ofsted are also noticing it. So Ofsted are seeing it. They're seeing the change in the staff culture, they're seeing the change in the feeling of the home, and more importantly, they're seeing the change in the children. So because of this programme, we have children now entering education that wouldn't have done that before because they wasn't able to. They would not have been able to sit into a classroom because everything that every other child did would make them angry, and that anger would have resulted in a physical attack or an upset. We don't have that anymore. They go to school or they engage in our online education. And most importantly, it has changed our children's outcomes. And you know, I get very emotional. I was watching the videos getting goosebumps. I'm such a crier. But actually what it is doing is it's allowing children to make contact with their parents again in a safe way. So you still have the emotions that are peaking because we know they're about to see mum for the first time tomorrow. But actually it's tomorrow and not next week. So that, in fact, it's even reduced that. You know, it's massively reduced that. So in terms of our homes, I'm fully invested. You know, we have just put on, we had a cohort of people go through last year. We have just brought in Innovating Minds again to another cohort of people. Actually, I think it was yesterday, was the training that yesterday they was on training. And already we have like a little group chat. And already people go, "Oh my God, this is amazing. What are we going to do? I want to start it now." You're not changing it, don't start it yet. But already we are seeing the new people coming in and being excited about it. And we are hoping that by next year, every single one of our practitioners will come in as a standard for the Healing Together programmes. So in terms of how that works, which you can't see, that's where we're at. So the boring bits, but the most important bits for those who are going back to sell this to their organisations, why can't I move that? There you go. Okay. Is our costs. So what has it done to us, the bottom line? Let's be honest, most people will have to run on money, right? We have seen a reduction in children moving to different homes. So this is outside of Saluton. Now within Saluton, we provide a continuum of care. So we are building and have built a cluster process. So a child coming in, for example, for a solo provision, the dream, right, is to go to a 4-bed home or 3-bed home, or even to go home. We are creating services that they can move in and out of that process. And we've had many examples of that happening, interlinking with our homes, where the environment no longer suits their needs because they don't need such an intense environment, or they do need a more intense environment. So we move them between. But this means that our failed placements, which I hate that terminology, has reduced. Because actually what it's done, it's allowed the incidents to reduce, which keeps the home in a better position, and obviously your staffing. We've seen, as I said before, an increase in children engaging with education because now they can, because they're understanding those feelings more. And a reduction in frequency and severity of behavioural incidents. And I can't emphasise that enough actually. Every day, as we all do, get a million emails, and my day always starts with what's happened in the last day. So I get an automatic, what's going on with incidents, and then throughout the day, as managers are putting them on, they become more and more and more. And it became a full-time job. Didn't do anything else, but just read incidents reports. I don't do that anymore. I have 2 or 3. And actually, incidents, probably would even reword that as well. What is an incident? That's a whole other workshop, we'll do that next year. Our staff retention. We know that COVID changed things for us as an industry, right? We know that now we're not just competing with older care and younger care, we're now competing with Aldi's, we're competing with home working, you know, TikTok, you know, all that kind of stuff we're competing with. But actually now, what this is doing, what I think COVID did is made it aware that this industry is really key and our frontline practitioners are really important. And what this does is it gives them that qualification. And it gives them that reassurance that we are looking after them. Because as Asha said in the beginning, be mindful of what you're talking about today and what you're hearing today. Well, in one of those sessions, a lot can come out. So it's changed our practice. And you know, not that we didn't care about our staff before, we did obviously. But now we have a set time. So if you're going into a session, we allow a buffer behind that session. So as you finish, you as a practitioner will then go out, have a cigarette, whatever you want to do, go for a walk, have a cup of tea, go and have a cry, go and have a scream. That's incorporated into our daily practice so that we're minimising that vicarious trauma. We didn't do that before, we just didn't do it. And it's not, again, not because we didn't care, but we left that for supervision. We didn't do it on the day when you're hearing it. And we all go home, right, hearing these horrible stories and have to carry on making tea for our kids and carry on our life as normal. Well, these practitioners are having to go into the next incident. And I refer to it as a GP or a doctor in A&E. A doctor can go into A&E and try and resuscitate somebody and it fails. They come out, they walk into the next room and put a plaster cast on a little girl's leg. Their trauma is huge from that. I don't want that. I do not want people looking back and saying my time at Salutem was horrific and now I've got trauma caused by what I heard. So we have changed that and that's meant that our staff retention has improved. It's reduced our sickness and absence, and I think we all want to admit this, we have a higher level of mental health sickness, right? Friday and Mondays, diarrhea and sickness, mental health issues, off with anxiety and stress, because that's what we're dealing with. It's real life stuff that we're dealing with. We've seen a reduction for that reason. It has to be because now we're more aware. You know, we're more aware of what this is doing, and the programme itself is allowing those staff members to not come home from every shift absolutely exhausted and dreading the next, because actually the children are understanding their feelings and process more. There obviously are recruitment benefits. It's a lovely attraction piece, you know, to be so candid about it. It is wonderful. Who doesn't want to go and work for somebody where they can have an accredited qualification from this, learn more, and improve their own practice? It's a massive, you know, attraction point. As we said earlier on, it is absolutely recognised by our regulators. And it is a scalable and sustainable model for our organisation. So we started with Innovating Minds and we've changed our strategy even more. And what we have, you know, we all know the saying, it takes a village. What we have now adopted is a model where we don't do it all. So we're the experts of residential care, and I'll argue with any of you tell you that I'm not, right? We absolutely are. But we are not psychologists. We are not therapists, and we don't want to be those people. So we now work with people like Innovating Minds who are the experts. And we do reach out to say, we're stuck, we don't know what comes next. Please help us with our strategy. And we now outsource all of our therapists and therapy work because, and the main thing is for this, is we don't want to layer trauma on trauma. So we know that children come to us as providers from probably the other side, you know, of the UK, hundreds of miles away. Then sadly, they will then get picked up and moved somewhere else. Well, those providers who are providing their own clinical care, their own therapy, that all stops. Because why are you paying for a child's clinician to go with them? The way that we now do it is we outsource that work. So the work now comes from, you get your therapist, when you move, they now go with you. So we're not layering trauma upon trauma. And we all know, as Asha said, we've all had something difficult in our lives. Imagine having to constantly repeat that. You just don't want to do it. So for a child where it's been so horrific that it's put them into a system We don't want them to repeat that again. So now, where we are now with Innovating Minds, we've embedded it. And actually, on one of our sessions that we had the other week, one of our deputy managers said, it's just natural for us. And that just kind of said it all. Thank you very much. So what does that mean next? If you just look on the next slide. So later on this journey, and there's that long-term commitment, there's always going to be bumps in the road. Sometimes people go back to old practices because things feel a bit chaotic, etc., and things might drop, but that's what the coaching session's there for. And that's why we have as well, so I go into their senior leadership meetings and we have these conversations. So it's either about vicarious trauma, what are you actually doing, do you know what vicarious trauma is? What about you as leaders? Are you getting lunch, are you having toilet breaks? Every time you go into a meeting, are you telling people actually I've not had lunch, and therefore you're modelling something that we don't want everybody else to be replicating? So it has to become part of the whole organisation. And you have to be ready to have those difficult conversations. And I'm okay to have those. Sometimes they might be received a bit like, oh, I'm not sure about that. So I'll give you an example about praise. We talked about the use of praise, and Ofsted want to see praise in reports, in kind of your documentation. But actually what we're saying is, you're praising child the fact that you've given them the opportunity to say how they feel about it. And we had one of the facilitators come and say, actually, because they was all like, oh, I'm not sure, and we've always used praise, like, why would you not, like, everybody wants to praise and to be acknowledged, surely. Because, like, actually, what does that mean for the child? Because you're praising them and saying, oh, that's really good, but you're missing an opportunity for a child to actually tell you what it felt for them. One of the practitioners, she came and spoke about her experience. She was having a session with a young person who'd been to school every day, 5 days, and she was about to say, oh my God, I'm really proud, that's really good you've got there for being 5 days. And she says, something made me stop and ask the young person, how do you feel about it? And the young person says, yeah, I'm disappointed. She's like, oh, okay. She's like, but you went to school. She said, I didn't get there on time every day. So that facilitator now, the practitioner, says actually we were able to support that young person to get to school on time, because that's what was important for them. She was reflecting, I would have missed that if I'd gone in with the praise straight away. Because sometimes our young people, they go along with what you tell, what kind of the conversation you're leading them down. And then that made her reflect on other conversations that she might have missed out on. So there's a process with this, and it's giving people the space to reflect and think about actually their own practice and what they're doing with this. So our next steps is the evidence base, contributing to the research field. So this work is going to be independently evaluated by Manchester Met University, and they're coming in to be able to think about the impact on the children, the impact on the staff, and the impact on the organisation. So that's due to be released in around September time, and hopefully then we can publish that into the sector as well, so we can transform children's care, the way that we think about it, and actually start having positive narratives about children in care and how we can support them and what we're doing as organisations. So we've got questions, we've got time for questions and discussions. So before we go into discussions, anybody got any questions or reflections about what you've heard from me and Karen?
Not that good.
No, go for it. Oh, Deb, if you stop.
Yeah, go on.